Hello, hockey fans. My name is David. So I would start this YouTube video. And what time is it now? 10:56 on the morning of Saturday, 14th January, Eastern Time, 7:56 Pacific Time. Before I get into the part about the Leafs and the importance they're going to have to place on winning games, thought I would do is mention the porous defense of the Canucks. I refer to in this tweet over here. You have the Penguins and Lightning. Also, undertaking claim made by and this deserve all the criticism they get. So I would also mention so this is one response. Yeah. And here's another. All those media personalities, there's no doubt that the Canucks deserve every ounce of criticism that they get for their losing ways. Ownership and management need to take note. Sure, the Canucks score, don't seem to have too much of a problem scoring goals in a lot of games, but when they have allowed goals, that is when they've lost. I mean, it's also the same tendency with the Leafs. When they've allowed at least 3 goals, they've lost more often than they've won. When they've allowed fewer than 3 goals, they've won more often than they've lost this season. When the Leafs have scored no more than 2 goals, they've lost more games than they've won. But when they have scored at least 3, they've won more games than they've lost. It's and I don't think the Leafs are alone in that. What I thought I would do is so I refer to this tweet here. I refer to the importance of different videos about the importance the Leafs are going to have to face on. We're going to have to place on winning. And yes, what I would do is on various Thursday games. All non-Leafs Canadian teams managed to score not just at least 2, but at least 4 goals. Indeed, the Oilers were not in action on Thursday Eastern Time, unlike the other Canadian teams. So there were 6 Canadian teams played on Saturday. The Leafs and Canucks lost their respective games in regulation. The Canucks ended up losing theirs by 1 goal. The Habs, Sens, Flames, and Jets all won their respective games. So in terms of the Leafs, whether they can do without Auston Matthews, it's hard to know. Will Matthews be back in the lineup against the Bruins? It's hard to know. This week was a mixed bag for the Leafs. has so far been a mixed bag for the Leafs. Thought I would do is go through the schedule the Leafs had. I'm just going to... So I would go to the official NHL page, the official Leafs page in the NHL. So we're going to see here in January, December. This is December. Early in the month, during a point streak, and then the last week was a mixed bag. They gave up four more goals in 2 games, but on New Year's Eve managed to beat the Avs. January so far has been a rather mixed bag. Lack of offense against the Kraken. Oops, sorry about that. Oh. I don't know what's going on here. Maybe I have to refresh. Yes, I do. This is January, folks. Austin Matthews was out of the lineup earlier in the week. And they still have games to play against some very tough Eastern Conference competition during the rest of the month. After that, they only have one more game to play before the All-Star break against the Bruins, but at home. So, I also, when it comes to, a high-octane offense, I look at what the Jets did against the Pens, 4-1, and what the Oilers did to the Sharks, 7-1 victory. The Pens are a near playoff team, kind of on the bubble in terms of whether they're going to get in or not. The Jets look like they're going to get into a playoff spot, most likely atop the divisional spot. Whether the Leafs and Jets remain the only Canadian teams to make it into the Stanley Cup playoffs 2023 remains to be seen. The Alberta teams are kind of on the bubble. Not really sure whether either will get into both season spot. But again, they got some important games coming up. The problem with the Leafs, though, is that without Austin Matthews in the lineup during either of the Preds game at Scotiabank Arena earlier this week, or at Little Caesars Arena on Thursday Eastern Time, the Leafs managed to not score more than 2 goals in either case. What happens in the postseason? It's not like the Leafs have done very well when they've managed to score fewer than 3 goals in a playoff game during the Matthews era, which is basically following the 2016 entry draft. So I would now go to April of last year, following an 8-1 loss to the Lightning at Amalie Arena. During the show broadcast on the morning after that game on Toronto Sportsnet radio station, the Fan 590, JD Bunkus, then a co-host of that show, claimed that with minimal scoring that with effectively Matthews and Marner production shut down by the Habs in that 2021 playoff series. That was it. Leafs lost that playoff series. Yes, Bunkis is wrong with respect to the quote unquote nobody else could score part, but not with the lack of secondary scoring for the Leafs. Doug MacLean, at one time an NHL GM, claimed on the Friday Eastern Time edition of the daytime Real Kipper and Bourne show, also on the Fan 590, but also posted on the Sportsnet YouTube page, so a very short video segment, claimed that the Leafs could ill afford to get the bottom six wrong this season, at least for the postseason. Well, he's right. We also claimed that the Leafs have gotten the bottom six mix of forwards wrong during each of the last 4 seasons, and that's a problem. Because by the 2019 Stanley Cup playoffs, the Leafs should have. Because by the end of the 2019 Stanley Cup playoffs, the Leafs should have already won a playoff series. Given what had happened, two playoff series defeats, and then you learn from them. That's what. But Dubas didn't do that. Signing these ridiculously expensive contracts for each of Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, and John Tavares for $10.9 million per season cap hits at a minimum. Should have been for $4 million at most for each of those 3 players. Maybe put them on bridge deals. Make those players prove their utility and not give them full-blown no movement clauses to kick in effective age 27. Well, Tavares was already at the age at which, by the time he'd been signed with the Leafs, of unrestricted free agency eligibility. Simply based on his age. Yep, signed to a full-blown no movement clause. One of those Dubas sweetheart deals that I probably won't forget for a very long time. There's no doubt the Leafs have been one of the worst run hockey organizations in terms of playoff success. Indeed. Repeated playoff series defeats, but regular season success? They're thinking, well, when's that going to end? Thought in October of last year it was going to end. October 2022 it was going to end. Leafs got on a tear, and they haven't slowed down very much. This game against the Bruins is going to be a crucial test. First of all, if Matthews is not there, I mean he's been ill earlier in the week, oh boy, Leafs are going to be in trouble. Against the Red Wings, the Leafs were not able to execute. And barely able to execute against the Preds. The Leafs really missed Matthews on the power play. Problem is, the bottom six mix is still not there. Is still not good. The Leafs have missed the boat on making a quality bottom six. But Dubas decided he was going to sign these superstars to expensive deals before they had deserved them. And what's been the result? Although goaltending hasn't been, like a primary cause of Leafs losing in the postseason, it's been a problem. I hope that Matt Murray, acquired for a rather expensive cap hit of a bit under $5 million will be well worth the price. Yes, Leafs got a couple of draft picks thrown in to sweeten the pot, but It's an expensive gamble that hopefully will work out, and at least somewhat it is. Matt Murray hasn't been injured very often. He's only been injured. He's only had really one injury stint. Thank God. Yeah, Peter Mrazek was a disaster. Yes, he had a respectable record. And yes, Leafs moved back a bit in the draft. The problem was that the Leafs should not have signed him to such a rich contract. It should have been, okay, one season only. And the cap hit is low. The problem was, basically on a prove-it deal, like with Samsonov, like with Ilya Samsonov. A prove-it deal, one season, low cap hit, and that would have been a way to prove. And if you're a Civ, you're out. That would have been much smarter. Instead of $3.8 million US cap hit for last season, this season, and next season. Yes, the Blackhawks are stuck with Mrazek unless they can get rid of him. But again, at least the Blackhawks have one season left of him, and they can decide to buy out his contract if they want to. That's not on the Leafs. But again, it's, Samsonov holding down the fort against the Red Wings when the Leafs were not able to execute. All the Leafs needed to do, score that second goal, and things could have changed dramatically from there. But instead, when that goal by, that Bob McMahon, a Marlies player, playing for the Leafs due to the nature of his contract with the NHL, had a goal taken away, it sucked. I mean, it might have been understandable that the goal should be taken away because of the kicking motion, because it was kicked in. Problem is, the Leafs, instead of rising up, determined to try to make it right, as the Oilers successfully did, which successfully do on Friday, when they had a goal called back against the Penguins, the Winnipeg Jets, Well, the Jets had a goal called back against the Penguins that had put the Jets up 2-0, and then it was tied at 1-1 at the end of the first period. The Leafs just quit. Running away. Rather, what they should have done is determined to keep on looking for that first goal. That important game opening goal. But that never came. By the end of the, not even halfway through the second period, I switched from that Leaf game to watching a combo of the Canucks and Raptors play. Again, will Auston Matthews return? That's a key question. He's going to have to be back. Because if Leafs don't have Matthews, they're going to be in trouble. And this stubbornness of Kyle Dubas, endorsed by former NHLer Brendan Shanahan, in terms of no need to change the bottom six, has failed. So thought I would go back to another episode of the podcast series of JD Bunkus of the Fan 590. Claim made about multiple bad Blue Jays contracts and, for the same team, bullpens. Because let's look what happened in Game 2 of the Mariners-Jays 2022 MLB Wildcard Playoff Series. Yes, okay, Alek Manoah was not great in the first game of that series. It was a 4-0 loss. The Bats just couldn't figure out how to score on Mariners pitching. Game 2, the bullpen blew the game away. I don't know what it was doing, but couldn't stop the onslaught of hits and runs by the Mariners. At one point in the game it was 8-1 Blue Jays. It would end up being 10-9 win by the Mariners. And that, I think, would be a perfect segue to, I think, end up this video, to end off this video with some thoughts from Sid Seixeiro on the October episode of City News Toronto morning show Breakfast TV about the collapse, about yet another lost playoff series by the Blue Jays, and the failure to have won a playoff game during the last several of those, and that he claimed that there were going to have to be major changes made to the Blue Jays to send a message to players that the front office was going to need to, in order to help the Blue Jays win playoff series, send a message to players, to underperforming players, that such players were going to have to be put on the trading block if they continue to underperform. And basically, no more. You're not going to perform. You're gone. You're going to be put on the trading block. And to shake up the organization until it started winning again. I thought I would also, also then, go to, I thought I would also, just one more thing from October of this year. A claim made by ex-Leaf defenseman Carlo Koyakovo on the last episode of TSN 1050 morning show First Up 1050 to be broadcast in October. I'm not going to actually play the broadcast, but what I would do is mention here about, about the need for more bottom six Leaf forwards to score goals, to provide goal scoring ability, to score goals, because it hadn't worked. Austin Matthews has been struggling. So the Leafs should have been prepared, but they're not built well enough. A team to win a Stanley Cup cannot just have one or two superstars. They need balance. Those teams need balance. That's what the Lightning had in, it's what the Lightning have had in each of the past 3 seasons. I thought I would go down to, let me just see here. Alright, so Alright. Alright, so this is about, so we have, let me go back to July, to a July 2020 episode of TSN 1050 lunchtime show, Leafs Lunch 1050, about the a claim made by Gord Miller, a long time play-by-play commentator for TSN for the Leafs and for various International Ice Hockey Federation top division tournaments featuring Canadian national hockey teams, about how the Lightning had been built during the 2020-21 season differently than the Leafs. In an audio response, I put it, Leafs had been built better. The Bolts have been built better than the Leafs. And it's no surprise that the Lightning won a Stanley Cup that season, and whilst the Leafs didn't even win a playoff series. Built better. Absolutely was built. The Bolts were built better than the Leafs. The Habs were built better to win playoff series than the Leafs were. So, it's, this is a rather important game. If it were, okay, third game in 4 nights, Leafs had 2 wins. If you get a point against the Bruins, great. But that's not how things were. The Leafs don't even have 3 points. They have 2 in the last 4 games. Because the Leafs failed to score more than a goal against the Wings. And that was only to cut the deficit to 2-1. Leafs would end up losing 4-1 because of an empty netter and a goal allowed against their own PK. And the penalty kill has to be better against the Bruins. Will it? We'll see. This is basically Dubas' last chance. As far as I understand, Leaf GM Dubas' contract will expire at the end of this season. Will Leafs win at least 1 playoff series? We'll see. I'm not confident that the Leafs will. Now, going back to Sid Seixeiro's claim made last October on Breakfast Television about the Leafs, that quote, nobody important, unquote, had left. Well, that, with respect to the core, I'd say I agree. I mean, players that, had already come and gone had come to and gone from the Leafs, but like among the core, Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Nylander, Morgan Rielly, Jake Muzzin hadn't gone anywhere. And that's a problem. What happens should the Leafs end up losing their 2023 first round series, which most likely will be against the Lightning, assuming that none of the Wings, Sabres, Sens, and Habs, and Panthers can manage to win enough games to overtake the Lightning? Well, I don't like these chances. And to those fans of Leafs who have claimed that the playoff format is off and all that, I say this. The Leafs faced 6 different teams during their final 2 seasons of playoff success as a Western Conference team. The Leafs beat 4 of those teams, 4 of those different teams, before going 4 seasons without a playoff series win, and then the Eastern Conference beating diverse teams. The Pennsylvania ones, the Senators, and the Islanders. So, beating 4 different teams during their run of 5 seasons of playoff success during their first 6 in the Eastern Conference. That is what makes a successful team. Yes, Leafs didn't even get to a cup final, but my God, they had more playoff success during the 1990s and early 2000s than they had managed to have during the 1970s, 1980s, or have so far had during the modern salary cap era. On that note, I'm going to say let's see, what time is it now? I'm going to say good morning and go Leafs go.